Well, if you've been on any of our calls before, you know that we love to start with a little breathing. So for the next 60 seconds, I'm just going to count out a cadence of 5 in and 5 out, and see if you can join the rhythm of my count. And we'll do that 5 in, 5 out 6 times. All right, so here we go. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Last one. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. And exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Welcome, everybody, to our kickoff intermission. And this is what we're calling the Art of Practice series, where over the next 6 Thursdays, maybe 4, maybe 5, we'll see, we're going to explore the art and science of practice. And we are going to speak with some of the world leaders in their respective fields in around the mental fitness domains. So we call it the wellness wheel, breath and nutrition, sleep, thoughts and movement. And in this Art of Practice series, we're going to explore the tools that most of us have at our disposal. So I think what's really important for us is that we're using things that are free, that we're in complete control of, or we can regulate, and that can be practiced virtually anywhere. And what we've seen over the past 6 months is that the return on investment of using these small practices, if we do so consistently, can really unlock your body and your brain in profound ways. And it can give us the ability to shift our state on the fly. And in this era, this day and age, with all that's been going on, the doozy of the year we've had, we can't think of much more appropriate skill than the ability to be psychologically flexible and agile, and to be able to be in control of our own biology as much as possible. So the key really is these small, consistent attention to detail. And what Scott and I were musing on was, boy, you know, we've been running these really great challenges. And, you know, through our conversation, I also work a lot with high-level athletes. And I was saying to him, you know, when I work with these athletes, we're very clear. We make this clear distinction between performance and practice. And when we go into the practice zone, we have the freedom to make mistakes and to learn, to try new techniques. And we can be very diligent about that, like, and very, very upfront. Like, I'm in the practice zone. And Scott kind of took it and ran with it and was like, man, I think that that's a really great concept. We should develop something around practice. I mean, how many of us have time to practice anything anymore? Everything is performance. Everything is live. There's very little room for error. So the essence of what we wanted to put together is around this idea of practice, and not just practice, but practicing practice. It's more philosophical in a way and humble. And so we want to plant the seed that you can, you know, potentially take on the role of a student. And really, these intermissions are all of us learning from world leaders. And so today is no exception to that. And we're just absolutely thrilled to have what in my opinion is one of the most accomplished practicers and mindful movement leaders on the planet And Cara, if you'll wave for us, Cara Bradley here is our guest today, and she's an author, a speaker, she's a thought leader in the mental fitness space, and she has a deep knowledge of movement and also the connection between the gut and the brain, the science around that. And I think what we're starting to see is that that's gaining a lot of attention in the world's best research labs, and a lot of longevity experts are exploring that as well. So she's really passionate about that, and she's really passionate about teaching people to be more fully engaged and alive. In fact, Mindful Magazine calls her, Cara, right here, one of the 12 most powerful women of the mindfulness movement. Cara has a podcast named On the Verge, and it's, I'm pulling this right from her language. It's a call to break free from your busy mind and to wake up right now, fully engaged and ready to shine. Discover how to shift beyond crazy busy into high definition, high voltage living. And as I mentioned, she's a dear friend of Scott and mine. And so when we were putting this series together, both of us thought of Cara immediately as the perfect first guest. Cara, thanks so much for joining us. And it's so great to have you here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that very kind intro. And, I love working with you too. Your hearts are so pure and in the right place. So those of you on this call, you've got two of the best here for sure. And I love this topic. I said to Damon the other day, I'm in love with daily practice. It really is. It's the blood in my veins. And I'm so excited to explore this with you. I think, really, I'm just going to say this off the bat to you all. It's so simple. It's so at our fingertips. It is so accessible. These very small shifts, these very small ways to balance and harmonize and synchronize our body and mind. And so if we can leave tonight just having trust that we have everything we need, we don't need, any new tricks and tips and devices. I guess, before we get into it, what I want to say, and I've said this to many, don't be fooled by this simplicity about what we're about to talk about. It's very powerful. And so if you can just sit and allow your body and mind to listen, not just your mind, but allow your body to listen to what we're going to explore tonight, I think that you may, leave with a little more confidence in your own ability to shift your state and to feel better more consistently.
Wow, thank you for beginning with that, Cara. And it does feel painfully simple and almost just so ubiquitous to our normal lives that we feel like that the real answer must be something more complex than that. So thank you so much for kind of bringing us back down. I often kind of frame these types of practices. I think people frame them, and I'm one of them, as they orbit around me. So here I am, and then my practice is out there. And so I'm the earth and my practice is the moon. And the way I think what I've discovered, and I think those people who really put practice at the center, is that practice is the core of the earth. It's not the moon orbiting around it. So there's no separation between myself and my practices. There's a relationship, and it's a very deep one. To that point about, you mentioned the body, bring your body into this experience as well. I wonder if you all will allow me just to take a couple minutes and do a quick visualization activity. And then we'll get real deep into Cara's expertise around movement. And the reason that I think this might be important right now is for exactly what Cara was just mentioning. And that is, it's within all of us. It's always been within all of us. So I wonder if you'll allow me to just take a couple minutes here. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about an activity that you loved so much when you were a kid. So let's get into those Back to the Future fans out there. Let's get in the flux capacitor and let's
Mhm.
dial it back, however old you are, back to when you were 10 years old. And that thing that you did that no one had to motivate you to do. And the love was so pure that you weren't doing it for external validation. You were fully immersed in it. So allow yourself to go back to that place. And as we unlock that memory, that experience, as we activate it, I want you to see if you can rekindle that relationship with your younger self. Like literally give yourself permission to go back to that time and just hone in on what you were so passionate about, why that activity brought out so much passion in you. And when you get there, look around. Who's around you? What are you even wearing while you're doing this activity? What's the scenery look like? And now let's take that same memory inside your own body, inside your own mind. What are some of the movements that would have been typical for you while doing that activity? Are they fluid? Are they athletic? Are they more stoic? And what types of thoughts were running through your mind? Are they filled with support, curiosity? Do they sound like determination and drive? Are they critical? Really get a sense. And now let's come back into the present moment and just briefly check in with your body. What's happening with your body right now? And generally speaking, having that memory activated in you, did that feel more positive or negative emotionally? You know, I like to start with that because I think that we have so much wisdom already kind of baked in. And with that lead up, I want to turn it over to you, Cara. And I think the place that feels appropriate to start is to define terms a little bit. And the first term that I think it's starting to circulate out there in the wellness space. But the first time I ever heard it was from you. And the term is mental fitness. And I know when I hear it, I go physical fitness. And I was wondering if you could just give us maybe your working definition of what that is and why that feels so relevant right now.
Yeah, thank you. Mental fitness is, in the way that I am defining it, it is our capacity or a capacity of that happens when our body and mind work together synergistically. When our body and mind are working together, when we are not a brain on a stick, when we are actually engaged, discerning, and intuitive about what is happening in our body and allowing our body to inform our mind, we amplify everything: clarity, instinct, sharpness, agility, and also calm. So, how do we get our body and mind working together? I mean, it sounds kind of crazy because obviously our brain is attached to our body, but so often we are loaded down by thought and the chaos in our busy mind that we forget that there is this intelligent, incredibly complicated system that is, like you said before, speaking to us. It's our body is like it's informing us. It's like these antennae to the world, the outer and inner worlds. And so I've spent my career understanding in my own personal investigation, understanding how do we become fluent in the language of our body and the messages and the information that that's streaming through our body to mind 24/7. Because I believe when we do that, we become mentally fit. We just are, we're on our game, we're clear, calm, agile, sharp, and ready to do whatever it is that the next moment uh, you know asks us to do.
Hmm.
So
Scott, were you?
yeah, I was going to ask you. So, carry on that because today we're talking about movement. One of the key practices that we want to explore, and what is kind of often defined on the wellness wheel is that idea of movement. And you become an expert in movement. So, how does movement become a part of that spoke in that wellness wheel, or the well-being wheel, as you're describing, or the mental fitness wheel? How does movement play into this?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I want to say before answering that, I've been in the fitness world actually now, I think it's 40 years, which really dates me, but it is that long. And I feel like the fitness industry, of which I've had many businesses in, but the industry has really hijacked movement from all of us, and it's packaged it. And so movement, it's our birthright to move if we're able to move our body. And the reason why it's so important, Scott, is I'm going to quote Dr. Roger Sperry. He was a neurophysiologist. And he said, he was a Nobel Peace Prize laureate. He said that 90% of the stimulation to our brain comes from moving our spine. And I'm going to say that again because I think it's pretty profound. 90% of the stimulation to our brain comes from moving our spine. So when we are stuck in front of these things, on these Zoom calls, for hours, and we don't move our spine, we don't take breaks, mini wins, micro practices to just move our spine, our brain is going to get fatigued much more quickly. So that's really how important movement is.
Yeah, that's amazing to me. There's a lot of research now. I think Bessel van der Kolk wrote a book called "The Body Keeps the Score," and there's a lot of research around trauma. And I think that kind of the poppy phrase is the issues are in the tissues, and that seems to really lend itself to what you're saying right now. Is that we have, number one, we're constantly informing our brain with the movement of our spine. And we're also almost like a geological, uh, historical dig, in a sense, with all of the life experiences that sort of get baked into our bodies. Have you noticed, as a movement expert, that moving also potentially is a great release and also can churn up a lot of emotional experiences from one's past?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, just base basic movement. When your body is calmer, your mind is calmer. When your body feels more stable and more flexible, your mind feels more stable and more flexible. So it's really why I take a body first approach to everything I teach. Start in the body, get the body stable, harmonized, synchronized, like I was talking about with mental fitness, synchronized, harmonized, stabilized, settled. And then from there, everything else comes out a little bit more clean, I think, more, the messages are cleaner. So, when it comes to trauma in the body, and I'm not a specialist in this, I've certainly read the books and have felt it myself, but having taught yoga for over 20 years, I'll tell you what, there are certain poses and certain times of a class when a body has become more stable and balanced, more coherent. When the breath is moving and the rhythm is moving, that emotions are triggered and released. And I always, I'd say to students, like, if you find yourself crying in class for no reason, like, that is such a bonus. Like, you're talking about, how much money you saving in therapy by just having, those emotional cries for no reason. It's good stuff, So yeah, when we move our body, when we settle our nervous system and it becomes more stable and coherent, then other stuff is able to release and emerge, because there's incredible amount of insight that we just are not able to tap into because of the tension and the instability, the unsettledness that we feel. So a lot of the practices that I teach, including movement, but it's movement and breath in rhythm. To me, that is the triple crown. When you can move and breathe in rhythm, it is, 2 or 3 minutes and you've shifted state.
So, Cara, you were mentioning, you just kind of rattled off, I don't know if anyone picked up on it, but it's almost like you have this checklist, like the foundation, like stability. Like, what are some of the practices that you get yourself in? Just start before you even move into your movement practice. You're doing some stuff to get yourself ready. I'd just be curious to know, what are some of the actual activities that you would do to, like, you wake up in the morning, do you do a body scan, right? Mm-hmm. Do you, wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers? Like, how do you start to get your body ready to do the movements in that fluid way, that breath and body work? So
can we do something? Can we do
absolutely.
A real quickie?
Yeah.
So this is something called Spinal 6. It's something that I've done in front of, 1,000 people in suits. So we can all do it. And really, it is the essence of moving and breathing in rhythm and moving our spine in 6 directions. When you think about that Roger Sperry quote, about 90% of the stimulation to our brain comes from moving our spine. So we're going to move the spine in 6 directions. We're going to breathe coherently, which is what Damon did earlier on, which is a 5-second inhale and a 5-second exhale, approximately. And we're going to establish this rhythm, which then our bodies love rhythm, just like a baby being rocked, or, kind of being on an airplane when it's just got that nice little bounce to it and you're taking an overnighter and you fall asleep. So if you would, you can stand if you want. I'm going to stay seated. Just place your feet to the floor and just ride with this. Like I said before, don't be fooled by the simplicity. This is powerful stuff that's innate to our bodies, that our bodies really love. So here we go. We'll just get the breath going. As you inhale, reach your arms forward and up. So take a long breath in. Spin your palms, exhale, reach your arms out and down. Inhale, reach forward and up. Exhale out and down. You can close your eyes as well if that feels good. One more time like that. Inhale, reach forward and up. Exhale, reach out and down. Moving on now. Inhale, reach forward and up. Interlock your fingers behind your head, so wide elbows here. Inhale, dip to your right. Exhale, center. This is side bending. Inhale, dip left. Exhale, center. So there's no rush, even though the mind wants to. Inhale, right. Exhale, center. Last one of this. Inhale, left. Exhale, center. Side bending. Good. Now inhale, drop your head back and look up. Allow your elbows to open wide, back bending. And as you exhale, drop your chin. You're going to bring your elbows together for a forward bend. Come all the way forward. Maybe even drop elbows to knees. Inhale, open up, back bending. Lift your heart, throat, chin up. Exhale, forward bend. Ribs in, belly in, tap. One more time. Inhale, lift your heart up. Exhale, forward, down. Come back to center for our last movement, and we'll do this off breath. You're just going to twist side to side. You can speed it up a little bit. Twisting from your ribs, shoulders, even your chin. We'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Come back to center. Just place your hands on your thighs. Close your eyes for a moment. Give yourself this moment to turn inward and to place your attention down beneath your neck into your body, noticing. Notice your heart rate thumping somewhere in your body. Notice your breath pattern. And now notice any other messages coming from your body. Coolness, heat, tingle. This awareness of body sensations. This is something called interoceptive awareness. It's the language of the body. And now you can open your eyes and just pause for a moment and notice your mind. You don't have to put language to it, just notice. So that simple practice called the spinal six, backward, forward, side, side, twist, twist, rhythm and breath, has the capacity to shift us from a frenzied or frantic state to a calm, clear state. Our breath changes the state, can downregulate or upregulate our nervous system. And when our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system, is in a state of balance or coherence, then our mind starts to settle. Our mind becomes clear and calm, or alert and at ease. And these are the definitions of mindfulness. Mindfulness is to be both clear and calm at the same time. We can't get there just from the mind. We can't force the thinking mind to settle. using our body and using movement, using a walk, using swimming or rowing or cycling or dancing or spinal six or yoga, it doesn't matter. But using the body to then change the state of your mind. I think it's really powerful. I've seen it work thousands and thousands of times.
Yeah, I always think of the quote, motion creates emotion, right? So like, how do you go into a situation? What state do I need to be in? And you often see it in like a sales thing. I know after that experience just that I just went through, there was a sense of calm, and prior to this, getting onto this call, I was doing some stuff here locally around, we've had some youth mental health issues in our community. And so a pretty traumatic conversation. And so I was a little rattled, but I feel calm. So it really does at 6, it really helped. And it's a state that I want to be in as I stay in the space with this community. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's so profound. I'm curious, love to hear from anybody that just went through that. Did that feel, I mean, we use these words like we need to shift our state. Can anybody put a sentence or two to what that experience felt like?
The thoughts that came to my mind after that was just this feeling of being sort of clean and clear and open internally.
Kathy, I just want to say something because I thank you for that. I often think of the Etch-a-Sketch, those Etch-a-Sketches that we all had. And truly, a few minutes of movement and breath and rhythm like that, it's like shaking up the Etch-a-Sketch and clearing the board.
Yeah, I think that's what, as you mentioned, how painfully simple these things are. And, oh, wow, 6 movements of the spine. It's profound when I think to me, mindfulness is also doing those movements, being present, doing those movements. And I really appreciate what you said. Your mind is going to want you to go faster. And kind of pay attention to that and find that rhythm.
Yes.
Can you imagine if those of you in the workspace or moms, and I'm a dad, and relationships, and can you imagine if before you got into the thick of it and started slinging around words at one another, if we all spent 2 minutes engaging in an activity like that before anything came out of our mouths, just how different would our interactions be? Feels pretty profound to me for something that simple. Feels like low-hanging fruit in a way. It's free. And that's what I love about you, Cara, is that, I do that activity myself, but I don't feel that depth. You really facilitate that so well. And even I noticed your own rhythm and cadence deepened as we went through that experience as well. And that coherence with one another is really powerful. And I also just wanted to circle back to that idea of, you said the physical fitness industry has hijacked movement. And you had just mentioned a bunch of ways to move. And I guess I just want to stay there for a minute and reclaim these simple movements as effective ways to shift our state. And it also makes me feel like actually, as I'm reading Janet's question right now, she's wondering why motion creates emotion. Motion often brings up emotion for me, and I wonder why this is. It's a great question, Janet.
So can I'd love to just go back to the fitness for a moment, then we can address Janet's question. I've done this spinal six, like I said, a lot of conferences. I'll go up on stage after a plenary or, a long morning of talks. And we all know we've been there. We're like, oh my God, but we're so disconnected from our bodies, and I'll do this, for 4 or 5 minutes. I can't tell you how many people have come to me afterward in tears saying to me, I haven't moved like that in a long time, or I didn't think I could do that. And I did. And it really has changed my life. It is our birthright to move and to use our body as an instrument. And you don't need Lululemon pants or a fancy bike, or Peloton, or I mean, like I am nature. I do most of my exercise in nature. Even though I owned a yoga studio for as long, 15 years, I still, I never, ever, ever wanted to make anybody feel badly, if they just decided to go for a walk that day and not practice yoga. I really feel really strongly that we need to reclaim our movement as a birthright and as an incredible tool for our mental health, which is why I like that mental fitness. I like using mental fitness because at this point in the world, we all know what it takes to get physically fit. We know we need to cross train. It's not just one type of exercise. We know about consistency. We understand that we have to challenge ourselves. And it's the same thing with mental fitness. But for me, like I said, I have a body-based approach to building mental fitness, which is what I teach when I do my work with mindful movement and other things.
Right. And as you talk about that, within the context of what we've been doing in the flow series around, struggle and recovery, right? To struggle well and recover effectively, and movement can really be aiding in both character, and I think the other thing, when you think about physical fitness, it's a struggle, to work the muscle. And I think by giving your, and I think it's also, it's recognizing that, hey, life's a struggle. And so let's give ourselves that mental capacity to persevere, because struggling is not optional. It's always going to be there. So I really appreciate how, and that's one of the reasons why the practice zone that Damon and I have been talking about is like, that's something I can practice. And what would happen over 30 days if I just practiced movement, or I built practice movement as a practice in my life as a self-care practice, and then stack it with those other things that we're going to be exploring over the next few weeks as we go through this. But the movement piece is so simple, and to your point, yet not understood as a value add to your own internal strategy for self-care. So it's a huge one. It really is.
And I would encourage everybody to really look at your relationship with exercise and to redefine it. Like you guys were saying about struggle and recovery, I'm as type A as it gets. I've worked hard to learn how to manage those patterns. So I know how to push myself. But I've redefined my relationship with exercise, and sometimes movement it is so much healthier to just take a slow walk, and to allow your body, your cells to recover, your mind to settle. And that's where, what Janet was saying about emotions, I've taught many a yoga class filled with rock solid bodies that, 6-pack abs and incredible in people that are in incredible shape. But in some ways, the tension of the body and the tightness of the body and the chiseledness of the body can lock emotions in. So that when we do allow ourselves a moment in a form, and a pose is it's an energetic form, oftentimes we change the form of what we usually do. So if all we do is get on the stationary bike and go fast, when we go to do a back bend, we may find ourselves crying, because that form allowed for the release of emotion. So that's why it's so important to redefine your relationship with exercise and really ask yourself, what do I need today? What do I need? Listen to your body, listen to the messages. Is it slower? Is it movement? Is it vigorous? Is it high intensity? Is it restorative? Like, what do I need? That's like ultimate self-care, Scott. I mean, that's when we really become empowered, when we're able to listen and make decisions and discern at that level.
Mm. Right. And, and because we're in this flow space as well, I mean, that really speaks a bit to novelty as a trigger. When we ask, what do I need today? Without knowing the answer, allowing the body to interpret those needs. Cara, you're the first person that challenged me to do that several years ago when we were in a program together. I'd created this morning routine, and you were just like, you know what, just make some shit up. Right. And I started to make some stuff up, and I was so in flow because I was focused on the next move and listening as opposed to dictating. And I think that to me was it flipped a switch that, oh, this isn't just crank out the routine. And just, stamp the routine. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about with, you're on a bike and you're just going, and your mind could be a million different places. It's good cardio, but are you fully embodied? Are you fully there? So I really love that. And that feels so approachable. And I also think you're touching on some things that are coming out in the brain science. I think Lisa Feldman Barrett has lately been talking a lot about how our brains are they're prediction machines. And in our brain, it costs a lot to react. And so our brains often want to just go back into the same old, because it knows the pattern there. So that's really why that struggle phase is such a struggle. When we're learning something new, it's our brain has to figure out some new patterns and create new neural networks, because he's not doing it the old way he used to do it. But therein lies all that new expression and room for genuine growth. And I want to make sure that we save a little bit of this end time to talk just more philosophically, maybe around practice. Like I said, most of us are facing live bullets all day long, and there's no room when you got to pick up your kids and get somebody to soccer and do a COVID test and, try to still, be at work on time. Who's got room and time for practice? And yet we were all raised on, violin practice and baseball practice and all these different elements of practice. You want to reclaim movement. I think we want to reclaim practice as a playground, a space that we can explore within. When I mentioned that to you, you really lit up. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts just around how you approach in your relationship with practice in general.
Yeah. Like I said, it is one of my favorite subjects. And one of my first yoga teachers, Baron Baptiste, he would always say, take your practice seriously, but don't take yourself so seriously in your practice. We want to practice in a way like we're surfing, where we're really just listening. We're listening to what's needed, where it's not, we have so, like you said before, Damon, we've got enough struggle out there. Our practice should be intuitive. It should be a gentle curiosity and discovery. So if it's 10 minutes a day and you bring in 2 minutes of silence, 2 minutes of journaling, 2 minutes of prayer and 2 minutes of movement, that leaves 2 more minutes. But I'm just saying, it doesn't have to consume your life. And so, I've done deep dives in 2 lineages, that would be yoga and Tibetan Buddhism, very deep dives into these very, strong practices. And I've come out after decades being very light about these practices, when it's almost like I have a toolbox, as we all do, of different tools, strategies, and ways to help me feel more alive and engaged right now in this moment. And so when we really listen, not to the ego and what the ego thinks we should do, but when we listen to ourselves, like, for instance, Scott, you were asking about my morning. Well, I wake up, you know, a decent time, not super early anymore. I was becoming a little too orthodox about that. So now I get up later, and I'll usually, while my coffee's being made, I do some of these spinal movements, because not too much, because in the morning our spine holds more fluid. So we don't want to do anything too ballistic too early. So just gentle, just getting the blood flowing. And then I sit and meditate. Some days my meditation is binaural beats on YouTube. Sometimes it's a guided practice by my teacher. Sometimes it's quiet. Like I really play. I think it's so important to play and to give yourself the flexibility to go longer or shorter, especially if you have a little lead in time. But today's only 5 minutes. Okay, awesome job. 5-minute meditation and a little bit of journaling, and that's it. So, and then other days I'll go, I'll spend 90 minutes in my practices. It just depends. I think that we just have to not take it all so seriously, but recognize the effectiveness of having some of these rituals and really potent ways to synchronize body and mind. Because when the body and mind are synchronized, we're calm and clear, we're alert and at ease, we're in our optimal state of what we would call a low flow state. It's not, a super, super high consequence type of flow state, but it's a low flow state where we feel really good.
I like the way you kind of frame it that way, because, we're always trying to get into routines or habits. And sometimes if I don't do my routine, that stresses me out. Right. And so by just keeping it as a practice, that, hey, I got this in, and I only had a minute, but I was able to get it in, or not, and be okay that, and I think for me, the way you frame it, it gives you a lot, it makes it a lot more interesting and more fun and curious, where I can try new things, I can experiment in this practice. Like, I'm going to try to go a little bit further. I'm going to breathe into the stretch a little bit more this time, because tomorrow I'm going to pull back. I mean, again, I think that what I love about what you're sharing is just how non-structured you're creating your practice is, but yet it's a part of your structure. So it's kind of zen in that way.
Yeah, that's well said. Yes, for sure.
What are the pitfalls? I mean, what are some of the warnings that you would give to people? Because again, our hope in the design of this experience is that, after we introduce all these elements of these spokes of the wellness wheel, that people says, I want to really focus on movement. Are there any other bits of advice that you have kind of lived by in terms of developing a movement practice, things to consider?
Yeah, I think when you look at how, and I just use the word loosely, is this orthodox way, we become so strict and so stern with ourselves, and it takes the fun out of it. And if there's no fun and lightness and joy, like Damon brought us back to our, something that we did during our childhood. And, there was lightness and ease and joy and humor in it. And if we become too orthodox in our practices, then that gets sucked out of it and it becomes work. And when you start putting your practices on your to-do list, I mean, honestly, sometimes I'll put it like in a bubble, just because I want to just look and make sure that I do a couple of things. But if it becomes part of your to-do list, it's become a little too stern and orthodox. And I want to share something that my teacher, Scott McBride, he's my meditation teacher. He's shared with me, I've written about it and talked about it quite a bit, but I find it to be one of the most helpful little loving kindness reminders ever. And you can do this if you want. You don't have to do it with your hand, but imagine or put your hand on your heart and just say, there, sweetheart. There, sweetheart. It's like you're doing the best you can. Just like, the grandmother would, hug you and you skinned your knee. It's like, there, sweetheart. When you're struggling in a meditation practice, or you're forcing something, or you're not able to get to the gym because of something, there, sweetheart. You're doing the best you can. All right. So maybe you take a little walk around the block after dinner tonight, just to get the blood flow going. Like, when we can start to change the dialogue that we have with ourselves, it lightens things up and we become more playful. And then, oh gosh, it just slipped out of my mind. When things become more playful, we get to make things up, just like Damon was saying. I mean, I say that in yoga class all the time. Make a pose up. Like, someone made this thing up. Like, make it up yourself. Listen to your body. What does your body need right now? Make it up.
Well, if you saw my yoga practice, it was all made up because I couldn't do half the shit you guys could do in yoga.
Doesn't matter.
It was insane. Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
Well,
I guess, go ahead, Dame.
It's really powerful around how to approach this idea of practice. And that is, perfection has to take a back seat. That, Scott, I know you're just joking with saying that, but when we're comparing ourselves to, and we live in a society where it's very easy to, if I go on my Instagram scroll, everyone's beautiful, everyone's doing amazing. And oh my God, my life sucks, and it's this comparison game that can become so dangerous. And when we allow ourselves, the phrase I use is just give yourself permission to be your unique self. We've been saying N equals 1 around here forever. And to me, the essence of N equals 1 is that you are a miracle. You are your own miracle that's never been before and will never be again. And so, Scott, if your downward dog isn't exactly like, the Egyptian pyramids, then so be it, because it's exactly how it should be, But we are really, really, really hard on ourselves. No one's harder on you than you. And that is just typical human default. Recent research coming out from a researcher named Ethan Kross. He just wrote a great book called Chatter. Said that they've now determining that we have 4,000 words that go through our mind a minute. 4,000. You can't even keep up with all of that. And most of those things are repeat, and then a lot of them are negative, and a lot of them are not very nice to our own selves. So there, sweetheart, is such a potent thing. I mean, even when I just put my hand on my chest, something changes, And actually within that book, they also mentioned, start speaking to yourself in the you. You've got this, instead of I have got this, or say your own name. Both of those things seem to create a little bit of distance and space from getting caught up in that self-critical voice. So that's the pitfalls side. Where do we dip our toe in with practice, Cara? How do we begin? And then we'll maybe leave a minute of space for anybody to reflect or share before we head out.
Sure. So, think about your body, mind. So we have physical practices, breath practices, which is the connector, and mental practices. And if you just start with that, I mean, there's the heart and the emotional practices for sure, which get interwoven. In the yoga tradition, we have something called the koshas, or the sheaths, down to our soul. And the outer is the physical, obviously, so it's body. And then there's energy. And so I think of breath. And then there's mental, so mind. So we've got body, breath, mind. And then the next level would be the emotions or the loving kindness practices, the compassion practices. And then at the center of it all is our bliss. It's our flow. It's how we come alive. So on any given day, we can polish the mirror on one of those sheaths. Some days you might want to polish, so it's like the windows to the soul. Some days you may want to polish more on the physical side. Some days when the body needs rest, you polish on the emotional or the mental. And so you have a toolbox of practices, and you play with them and you explore them and you get curious and you fade in and out of some and you come in and out, but you hold it lightly. You hold yourself lightly within those sheaths.
Mm.
So I hope that's a helpful starting point.
Well, it really is, Cara, because next week we have Dr. Tricia Smith, who's does a lot of work in breath, and she was one of my instructors at Wim Hof, but she took it to a deeper level. So I'm excited to share her work with the community. On April 8th, I have a professor, Dr. Sonia, something Israel. I forget her middle name there, but she's a sleep expert. She's from University San Diego, and she's done a lot of research around just sleep and the benefits of sleep as a practice. And then in the following week is a woman named Rhonda Dusterberg, who's she's a psychologist and does a lot of work with thought and the practice of thought as a healing tool as well. So we just keep building the bench. And then we want to invite you back for nutrition, because we didn't really talk about the gut brain health, but nutrition is a big part of that wheel as well, as it kind of leads into the 30-day practice that we're going to be curating starting on May 3rd. So hopefully you guys got some insights around movement as a practice, and start to ask yourself, could you, if you were to kind of have a practice for 30 days, hopefully that can embed into just a part of your bubble more consistently, I guess you can say.
And those of you who are taking notes right now, I would leave you with this. Write your name down. So it would be Damon. What are you interested in practicing? And just sort of leave that question open, and allow your body and other information centers within you to potentially become activated. It's amazing if we ask our brains the right kinds of questions, that it ends up giving us the answers that we need. So, Cara, that was an incredible kickoff. So many gems. I appreciate you so much. And thank you so much for coming on. And we'll post all of Cara's information, sites, and podcasts. She has an incredible book.
You have a course on the Mindful magazine too, right? You have a course going on there?
Yeah, Mindful magazine. Thank you. We just published Mindful Movement for Strength, Clarity, and Calm. So it's a great little course, 36 videos and practices on a lot of the stuff that we talked about, but putting it into action.
That's great. So I want to put a plug out there, because that could be something that people can continue to work on. So
yeah, we'll send a link for the course. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if anyone has any follow-up questions for Cara, or something kind of arises, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to get those over to her and get some responses. Thanks everybody for showing up. Cara, do you want to take us out with a quick little 10-second breath practice before?
Sure. So wherever you are, just plant your feet. Planting your feet immediately brings your attention from your busy mind into your body, into the lowest level of your body. Just by planting your feet down, feet planted, it can help us to feel more grounded and aware. And now just take a deep breath in, filling up from your belly to your mid body, to your back body. Feel everything expand. And a big exhale, you can just even let it sigh out your mouth, extending your exhale and then letting it go even further. We'll just do one more of those. Inhale, allowing your belly and your chest and your back body to open and expand, and a big sigh out. Exhale. And for this one last moment, just recognizing you are extraordinarily intelligent, brilliant. And when we allow ourselves to drop out of the thinking, busy mind, and we start to pay attention to the messages, to the language of the body, we become so well informed as to how to best serve ourselves and to how to feel balanced and to how to feel calm and coherent. And from there, everything we do better with more heart, with more grace, with more flow. So thank you all. It's been an honor to be here tonight.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Cara. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Cara. Great to see you as always.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Next week is breath, so keep an eye out for that one. I'm excited for the and what's so amazing, all the experts that we have are amazing women like yourself, Cara. It's like, I don't know what that is, or something in the universe saying that, hey, you gotta bring us in. So grateful for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Keep practicing.
Bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.